to see this.
Oh, great. Yeah, there he is. Eric Segall, the Legal Eagle, Georgia State University constitutional law scholar. He's got a fancy chair that your name of. They have a chair in academia. There's chairs. Aaron Carroll has them in his actual office. They give you a chair, an actual chair.
I am the Ash family chair professor of law, but no one ever gave me a real chair.
Oh,
I want a real chair.
Aaron had to add a room to their house. To put it all chairs everywhere. Yeah. Every chair you sit in at Aaron's house has a plaque on it of a famous white person.
I think there should be a real chair. Now that I'm going to raise this with the dean. Thank you for mentioning that.
Well, it's a very prestigious job that you've had for a long time. You've written books that keep being proven right, and including most recently Originalism as Faith, because your last blog entry talks a lot about that. They think they've won the originalists. Anyway, it's great to talk to you. I want to talk about that and a bunch of other things. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for everybody who's slowly walking in and joining us live. How was your holiday, Eric
My
Segall?
holiday was great. Lynn cooked amazing food because she is amazing, and glazed carrots with maple syrup, corn souffle. Yeah. Fantastic stuffing, green beans, turkey, mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes. I wonder, is that excessive, do you think? Mashed potatoes and sweet potatoes?
You had a big group, I know, and she loves to cook. So I wouldn't call it that myself, but I'll tell you this. I don't like a cooked carrot. I don't care what you put on it.
Try putting maple syrup on it.
Yeah, that sounds like, all due respect to Lynn. You tell her straight from me. I said, God damn, what the hell's wrong with you?
They're so good. They're so good. I could be sensual about it if you want. They are so good. They are. By the way, I could have just had corn souffle, though. Corn pudding. I could have just had corn pudding. Been very happy. Just 15 huge bowls of corn pudding.
You're 6. Well, lots to talk about with you. I know your lane is not like military JAG law, but still I have to ask you about how the Constitution relates and what it says about these targeted killings that this regime is doing. This is not your Obama administration or your George W. I mean, even W, when they had these types of targeted killings, we knew who they were targeting. They made it public. They showed you evidence, whatever. Not that it was ever okay, but this is way different. This is much, much different for a lot of reasons than those. But what are your thoughts? And is the whole legal canon in agreement on this?
I've not seen a dissenting voice yet, and I've been looking and researching and reading, and this is not my wheelhouse of constitutional law. It's not really even constitutional law. Before we get to the law of this, Pete, which is kind of complicated, but the bottom line is easy. But before we get to the law, let's just step back a second. So a boat is coming to America, and the president of the United States thinks that this boat might be up to no good, might be up to coming here to do illegal things. Let's say the boat was coming here to bring guns instead of drugs. It had a bunch of big guns it wanted to bring in illegally, or other product that would be illegal to bring into America. And the president just kills everybody with no due process? No, that's not how this. Forget law for a second. We can't have the Soviet Union and France and Vietnam and Cuba just killing people coming to their country who might be doing illegal things. Like, that's just not how the world operates. It can't be how the world works. It's just wrong. We're not at a war with these people. There's no declaration of war. There's no fighting. We're just killing people who might commit crimes in America. It doesn't make any sense. One analogy I like to give that I haven't seen yet is, imagine if they had somehow come to America and now they're in the Hudson River. And the president thinks there's a boat on the Hudson River that has, terrible fentanyl on it or whatever. You just can't kill them. You arrest them and you give them a trial. And if it's true in the Hudson River, it's certainly true in the Caribbean, a bottle of water we have no sovereignty over. I mean, you don't need me to talk about this. You really don't, because it's so obviously incredibly wrong. And in fact, part of the law of the long-standing law of war, which this is not even, because we're not at war with anybody, is you don't kill civilians. Now, I understand it gets complicated when you hide civilians behind military targets or whatever. But the bottom line is you have to avoid killing civilians if you can. And these people are civilians. The fact they may be part of a drug cartel or a terrorist organization does not matter at all. Now, if they were part of the terrorist organization that brought us 9/11, then we have some legal arguments we can talk about. No one's claiming that. No one is claiming that. These are just people who might be committing crimes. What if they were coming here to rob a bank? And we know that, and we know this. We can see their boat. We can see they have tools. We can see the bank. We can't kill them.
The thing is, but all that being said, my understanding is we don't know anything about them. We don't know their name. We don't know what evidence or intelligence that our military resources have acquired for them. Right. The New York Times did a deep dive on the family of one of those that was killed. They're destitute. We don't know if they're fishermen. We don't know anything. I mean, in the past, we knew exactly who we were. They would make a case. They would have intel. They would go through all kinds of channels.
Even then, you can't just kill them. You detain it. You capture it. Now, if they fight back, if you say, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Navy, we're boarding your ship because okay. If they fire guns at you, then you fire back. That's fair.
That's different.
That's different. That's not this. You just can't. But it gets even worse than that. Like, it's even worse than that somehow, in that apparently we just learned that 2 of the people were not killed, were like on debris or hanging on to the remains of the boat. No threat to anyone in any imaginable way. Kill them all? That's a clear violation of everything. So the harder question for us. So I don't know anyone who's saying the initial, if the order was kill them all no matter what, that's just illegal and it's wrong. And then there are survivors, kill them too. That's insane. So now the question becomes, what do we do with the people who gave the order? And what do we do with the people who followed the order? The people who gave the order, that's an easy one. They lose their jobs. They should just lose their jobs. That's not a close call. I'm not suggesting the people who followed the orders necessarily get prosecuted or lose their jobs. That's a harder question, but it is the law of the United States. It is the law of war. It is the law of human rights. It is the law of everything, that you cannot get in trouble for following a clearly unlawful order. This is why we had the Nuremberg trials for the Nazis, all of whom claimed they were following orders. This is why Lieutenant Calley during Vietnam was prosecuted. So if the initial order wasn't clearly illegal, which it was, the order to kill the people hanging on the boat who have no threat to anybody, that is illegal under 17 different laws. So it's just, Pete, it's almost impossible to comprehend what authority the president thinks he's acting under here, because there is none. There is no authority for him to do this. It would be like a Jamaican boat heading towards Cuba, and Cuba just blows it out of the water because there might be people on board who might commit crimes. We would say, no, Cuba, you can't do that. Well, it's the same thing.
Lieutenant Calley was the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, and there are countless other examples. It's interesting too, because I don't know if you know that story, but Hegseth and a bunch of other people, including Trump, were both and a few others outspoken defenders of this notorious war criminal, the guy who killed a detainee in Iraq, a Navy SEAL. And Hegseth, Trump pardoned the guy. I mean, they celebrate other proven war criminals. In the meantime, our commander in chief is giving a pardon or commuting the sentence of this guy, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted of drug trafficking charges last year in U.S. court. And it required a whole bunch of resources.
45 years in prison, I think, because I had 45 years, I think, that guy got.
I mean, he was convicted of conspiring to import cocaine into the U.S. He was sentenced to 45 years. So we're killing these low-level potential drug traffickers, drivers of drugs, transporters of drugs, and we are liberating one of the guys who was one of the most influential and loved it. And he's quoted as saying something about, we're going to stick so much cocaine up the gringos' noses or something like that. So that's a contradiction, a couple of contradictions there. But so not to be surprised when you become a war criminal yourself. I guess my one constitutional question is, the Supreme Court gave Trump immunity. Can he extend that to, in this case, Hegseth. Is he saying potentially to
No,
Hegseth?
hold on. Let me be clear about one thing. What is under the law today, of course, with this Supreme Court, you never know. Only the president has absolute immunity. None of his advisors, no one else.
I haven't heard anybody raise this, and I'm just wondering if it's just hypothetically. Could he tell Hegseth, listen, you kill everybody and don't worry about anybody coming for you because I'll pardon you no matter what? Could he be doing that?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question. So the pardon would be effective. We can't undo the pardon under our current system. However, if somebody gave President Trump $1 million to pardon them, the pardon would be effective. But the bribery part of that might still be actionable in a world where the president could be prosecuted for crimes. So that the president can't use the pardon power to commit a crime, a separate crime. But it doesn't matter. None of this matters because until the court changes its mind, there's no evidence that could come in that would be admissible. If Trump and the Secretary of War have that conversation, the Supreme Court has said that conversation is not admissible evidence. So how would you prove it anyway?
Why are you using Secretary of War? Can you just say Secretary of Defense?
Because Pete, from the first second we met until this moment, I try to be as accurate as possible. He is currently the secretary. By the way,
no, he's not. It's not even illegal. That's not legal. You can't change the name of that's illegal too. Where does in the Constitution say that? Doesn't Congress have the authority to change names and titles of cabinets? Jesus.
Right. So if you haven't learned anything from me over the last 12 years, this would be the one thing. The fact that the Constitution says something or doesn't say something is not how we do constitutional law in America.
Okay, how about fair enough. Always worth just
a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Yeah. And we just lost those words. They're gone. As if they're not even in the Constitution.
Wow. So what do you think of Senator Mark Kelly and the other Democrats who are mostly veterans basically putting out that video saying, don't follow unlawful orders?
So what I find interesting about that, Pete, is not that. I mean, that is interesting, and God knows all 6 of them deserve a whole lot of credit. What I find more interesting, though, is the president's press secretary treating that video as if it said, don't follow legal orders, which they went out of their way not to say. They said, don't follow illegal or clearly illegal orders. And she says this, and the whole world can hear her, and we all know it's a lie. And yet the world spins. Like, it's bizarre. Like, this is not an opinion thing. They didn't say don't follow legal orders. They said don't follow illegal orders, but she characterized that as not following. And
everybody else said too. Everybody else, everybody on the right has as well. They're outraged that they said don't follow the orders you're given. They didn't say that. Of course, they said don't break the law. That wasn't a controversial video.
Right. And yet we go on like it's really the emperor's new clothes in a way that this is Trump's specialty. It's what he does. A brief aside, Pete, last year, for the first time in my career, I lost my temper during an academic debate. It was the first time I ever did it. I had 34 years, pretty good. I've been mad, I've been riled up, I've been happy, I've been sad. I had never lost my temper until I did an affirmative action debate at Emory Law School with a person who lied every sentence. Every sentence was a mischaracterization. And I couldn't figure out how to debate him because I didn't have time. I couldn't cover all of his lies in the time allotted, and we couldn't have a real conversation because every premise he made was false. When President Trump lies 50 times a day, you can only catch up to so many. I mean, it's just crazy. Sorry, a little frustration seeping in there.
Well, there's more news to talk about with obese Juan Kenobi. He also is basically wanting to skirt. Well, I think we already talked about it. I just realized I said a brain fart. We already talked about Supreme Court and tariffs, I think, right?
Well, we did it a few weeks ago.
I don't know.
But there's been some conventional wisdom since then, and it seems like most people think the court is going to not let him do this. We'll see. Okay. I don't have that same faith. After the immunity case, I've lost my faith in the ability to predict the Roberts Court. I used to be pretty good at it, but now I'm not.
What do you make of all of these prosecutions of his enemies where no lawyer at the Department of Justice would take the case? No prosecutor would. So he brought in like a real estate lawyer and
insurance lawyer.
insurance lawyer, whoever it is. And so there's that. There's also news today about Alina Habba, who is another one of his sycophants and
personal lawyer.
By the way, he just has these beautiful women that are probably smart, good lawyers, but like they don't have any history in the practice of law that they've been given a job for. I mean,
right. So I thought you were going to ask me about this, so I prepared something for you for this. So it has been the time since George Washington that presidents appoint friends / associates / recommendations from people they trust to high-level positions like the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey or the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, where a former beauty pageant insurance lawyer was told she couldn't do it. That's been going on forever. Obama did it, Bush did it, they all do it. The difference is that there's a difference, though, and it's a major difference. When every previous president, as far as I know, did this, they were choosing from a pool of otherwise qualified people.
Yeah,
in other words, what Trump is doing is putting in people who have never practiced criminal law to prosecute criminal cases. And it turns out it's harder to prosecute criminal cases than people think. And there are a lot of due process and other type of requirements that go into it. And that's what they're finding out. But the really scary thing, though, is somebody is spending a lot of time trying to figure out quasi-legal ways to do this. So I actually read the Court of Appeals decision today that said Habba, whatever her name is, could not be a U.S.
Alina Habba had a federal appeals court said today that Alina Habba had been serving unlawfully as the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, dealing a blow, of course, to the regime, and most likely setting up a showdown at the Supreme Court, is the reporting I've got here.
What's interesting about it is if you started to read that opinion, you would fall asleep within 6 or 7 paragraphs. It took every ounce of 34 years of teaching constitutional law and other law to even follow the opinion, Pete, because the Trump administration used a lot of subsections of this. And so they tried to do it in a way that would be consistent with what the paper's law says they have to do, but they failed. They failed miserably. But the point is, someone is doing a lot of legal research, and I can't figure out who that would be. It turns out, in effect, of course, none of these cases have gone to the Supreme Court yet. So until the Supreme Court affirms these cases, we know it's all up for grabs. So I don't know if they're going to appeal these cases because they seem to be on virtually no legal foundation. The general idea is this. The founding fathers believed in separation of powers. It was really one of their main ways to avoid tyranny. So the idea was for the president's top officials, the Senate has to confirm them. Now, there may be times when someone dies in office, someone retires unexpectedly, someone is arrested for committing a crime, whatever. So we have these rules where you can put in somebody temporarily for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whatever. And that's a good rule because you need someone in position if someone dies of a heart attack. In this case, the first assistant to the U.S. attorney is the person who is supposed to be that person. So I'm oversimplifying. But what the Trump administration did is they eventually basically got rid of all the first attorneys and put her as first attorney just so she could become the U.S. attorney. And that doesn't work under the law. And that's what the circuit court said. But the real idea here is we want the Senate approval so that we know these people are at least minimally qualified. And what Trump has done, even at the end of the last year of his first term was just like this too. He's just putting his unqualified friends in these positions. And that's really new.
Well, but specifically because they'll carry out his orders.
Yes, without question.
That's the other thing that it's interesting. We don't ever even talk about it because we've normalized it so much, but he's putting lawyers in positions at the Department of Justice so they will carry out his orders. The President of the United States is not supposed to give orders to the Department of Justice of
who. That's not, okay, hold on. That's not right, my friend. I'm sorry.
How dare you come to this?
I am sorry. I apologize. I hate correcting you. It's one of my least favorite.
You know what it feels like to be me right now? We're live.
For your audience, I did work for the first Bush administration in the Department of Justice. I know of what I speak here. No, the Attorney General of the United States reports to the president, and the president can fire him or her for any reason whatsoever. And the Attorney General is supposed to carry out the president's orders. Now, there has been a somewhat of an idea that the Department of Justice is supposed to rise a little bit above that and not be totally partisan. But the reality, Pete, is that at least since the Reagan administration, if not before, the Department of Justice works for the president and is the executive branch's agency.
Did other presidents, did Biden order Merrick Garland to prosecute anyone at all, ever?
Well, so I'll give you a better example than that one you and I have talked about a lot. And I am not making I'm not making a comparison here. What Trump is doing is unprecedented. But for example, when Obama bombed Libya, he had the first opinion he got from the Office of Legal Counsel, which is in the Department of Justice, which is supposed to give the president tough legal advice. He got 2 no's before he found a yes. And the yes one he got was from a very famous.
That's not the same. He was
Pete, it is the same.
It's not the same. And I'll tell you why.
Go ahead.
Because in that case you're giving me, the Obama administration was trying to get permission to do a thing. I'm talking about.
No, you understand what I'm saying. The first legal advice was no, you can't do it. The second legal advice was no, you can't do it. It wasn't. By the way, it's not hard for the audience to understand this. The War Powers Act requires the president to do certain things. If there are hostilities, has to be hostilities. President Obama claimed that bombing Libya was not hostilities because American forces weren't put in danger. I don't know any.
What I'm saying.
Most liberals and progressives think that argument is frivolous on its face.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the president of the United States ordering the Department of Justice to investigate specific people, specifically his enemies. What you just said was the Obama administration trying to get permission to do a thing, but it wasn't to investigate and prosecute.
Nixon did.
Okay, Nixon. Did Obama? Did Biden ever tell their Department of Justice or their Attorney General, you need to go prosecute that former FBI head of the FBI or the Attorney General of New York or any number of other people that he's told them to investigate, and then they do it?
I'm making a different point. When the president says to the Attorney General of the United States, I think Hillary, by the way, we should report some good news, right? We never get good news. President Trump and Baba, that same person, were fined like a huge amount of money for filing a frivolous lawsuit against Hillary Clinton and one other person. And one of the most conservative, originalist judges in America, the chief judge of the 11th Circuit in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, upheld those sanctions against Trump for filing a frivolous lawsuit. That was pretty cool. That's actually a pretty interesting.
When does that news come out?
That news broke last Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay. Alina.
Yes.
Appeals upholds $1 million penalty against Trump in lawsuit.
Yeah. So there was some good news. What I was correcting you on is the president is allowed to tell the Attorney General of the United States, go do something. Now, hopefully, the Attorney General of the United States says, well, I'll only prosecute them if the evidence supports it. And if the evidence doesn't support it, I won't prosecute them. But the Attorney General of the United States does report directly to the President of the United States. Now, there's also been some norm that the director of the FBI, who basically works alongside the Attorney General, is supposed to have some shred of independence that maybe is different than that. But that's not the law, Pete. That's just practice, and that's not really happening. However, having said all of that, when the president gives an order that is clearly illegal or unlawful, then the Attorney General should say, Mr. President, and this is what happened. Nixon said to his Attorney General, fire the special prosecutor. And the Attorney General said, no, I won't. And the president fired him. He then went to the Deputy Attorney General, said, fire the special prosecutor. And he said, no, I won't. And the president fired him. He then went to Robert Bork, who was third in line, and Bork said, I'll fire her. The first 2 people did the right thing there. So the Attorney General is supposed to say only if the law allows this. Now, of course, no one in the Trump administration is saying this because, and this is the point of my monologue, they don't believe in the rule of law. They believe in the rule of Trump. And that is new. That is not something that has been in the Department of Justice, for a long time.
Okay. Let's talk about this other issue. Yeah, it does, but it's like, I'm just being clear. Like, there is no example in my lifetime of any president telling his Attorney General or Department of Justice anywhere to go prosecute.
But there is
other Americans.
Nixon.
I said in my lifetime. I said in my lifetime. And I think that matters because people don't have a memory of things that didn't necessarily happen.
That was mean what you just said. That was mean.
And your
I was
lifetime.
alive. I was alive for all of that.
Well, I know you saw the Cleveland administration do something similar. The
Sorry.
Grover Cleveland.
See, here's the thing. If you're allowed to make fun of my age, I think I should be allowed to make fun of things about you that I'm not allowed to make fun of.
You can make fun of anything about me. That's the whole rule with me. As long as it's funny. Good luck. Absolutely. No, take your best shot. What are you not allowed to make?
I believe I have you on tape during our last session as you saying I was funny. Didn't you say that last time?
I said you were funny at a specific moment in time, and then before and after that.
Moments. All right. Sorry. Next topic. I'm sorry.
Next topic is that you wanted to talk a little bit about Native Americans, persecution of Native Americans, how it pertains to.
In the I think 12 or 14 years we've been doing this, I don't know if we've ever had a conversation, you and I, about Native Americans. We did once when one specific case came out, but that was one show. I
don't know if you know, but I'm pretty heavily involved and have been for years with the tribal community in a number of different ways.
Awesome.
Grew up.
I am woefully ignorant of a lot of that, but I have been learning more about it for various reasons recently. And a professor at the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill School of Law named Daniel Price wrote a really great article that I thought made some points that I haven't shared with your audience that I think were really interesting. One of which was the way we've treated Native Americans throughout history and the awful, I'm not going to, everyone knows this has been a disastrously awful thing. The Supreme Court has never condemned that. So the Supreme Court has condemned slavery. The Supreme Court condemned segregation. The Supreme Court condemned, prejudice against women. The Supreme Court has condemned various prosecutors here and there. But the Supreme Court has never come out and said, as a majority opinion, that we should view our treatment of Native Americans the way we've traditionally viewed our native, for example, of Black people in this country. They've never said that. And what this person's article is about is the first step is the court needs to say that. That's in the next case, the court needs to say, we're not proud of our past about this. The only justice, liberal or conservative, who has really been on point on this is Justice Gorsuch, which I'll get to in a reason for that. Gorsuch is the most pro-Native American justice in American history, I think. And I'll get to that in a second. But I did find it interesting. So, for example, Congress is allowed to say to Native Americans, yeah, we entered a treaty with you, and guess what? We're not going to follow it. Too bad, so sad for you. And there's nothing Native Americans can do about it, nothing the Supreme Court will do about it. It is just violate their rights. We don't care. And there's 10 other things like that. So I found the idea of recently in the Trump Muslim ban case, Justice Roberts said that the court of history has overruled the infamous Korematsu case, which upheld during World War II, putting American citizens of Japanese descent in camps. And we talk about that as an evil thing. We should not have done that. It was evil. And the court talks about it that way. The court talks about Dred Scott, which held Congress couldn't end slavery in the territories and Black people couldn't be citizens back in 1858. The court talks about that case as evil. It's part of the anti-canon. It's wrong. But the court has never said those words about the things we've done to Native Americans. So I thought that was interesting. The second interesting thing,
so many other institutions should also do similar things. There should be all kinds of recognitions of our history. We've tried to do that at times, but those statues and exhibits get put away.
Yes. No, yeah. But the court has not been shy. It takes them a long time. Where evil is, and the court deems it evil, they say so, and they haven't done so here. So that's interesting. I assume your audience is now thinking, Justice Gorsuch, really? Why would he care about Native Americans?
He's the best friend tribes ever had, according to tribal news outlet Lakota Times. They write that he has, despite his staunch legal support for every Indian case that has ever been considered by a court where he sat, he's not highly acclaimed or honored by any of the 574 federal recognized tribes. The stigma of being a Trump nominee continues to cast doubt on his intent, despite is never ruling unfavorably in tribal cases.
Right. So,
according to a tribal news outlet.
So the reason I brought this up, in addition to talking about the plight of Native Americans, which is really sad and tragic, is it confirms something I've been saying to your loyal listeners for 14 years. Justice Gorsuch wrote a book. It's a horrific, terrible book. I wrote a funny review of it for Dorf on Law when it came out because it was so terrible, awful, and disgusting. But there is one thing that Gorsuch said in that book consistently throughout the book that I'm sure is true, which is he loves being a Westerner. Now, he grew up in D.C. His mother was head of the EPA. He went to the same private school in D.C., outside D.C., as Justice
Not as
Kavanaugh.
much of a friend of the EPA as he is tribal.
Right. He likes Native Americans much more than the environment, it turns out. But so why is Neil Gorsuch evolved? Because he views himself in a certain way as a Westerner who he's not. And there's nothing about him that's authentic about that. But that is how he views himself. And my point about that, Pete, is for the people out there who still have any lingering idea that Supreme Court justices decide cases based on law. They don't. I mean, hard cases they care about. They base it based on life, values, and personal experiences. So Gorsuch is the most Native American friendly justice probably in American history. Anthony Kennedy is likely one of the most, if not the most, gay-friendly justice in American history. There have been 4 cases.
Took a long pause and then said friendly.
There have been 4 cases in the Supreme Court ever upholding gay rights. Anthony Kennedy wrote all 4. Okay, a Reagan appointee, all 4. Why would that be? Because he had a very, very close friend of his father who he knew very well and treated as an uncle, who lived in the closet for 25 years as dean of a law school. And Gorsuch saw with his own 2 eyes the indignity of that and became friendly to gay rights. Justice Scalia, from the moment he got on the Supreme Court to the day he died, was always in favor of gun rights, which is why we have Heller. Scalia was, adamant about that. It's not a coincidence that he loved hunting. One of his greatest passions in life was having guns and being a hunter. Justice Thurgood Marshall is the most important justice for race relations in American history. It's not close because he argued Brown and his whole life was about improving race relations in this country. And I could go on. Justice Alito hates unions. He hates unions for some very personal reasons. So every case he has with unions, he rules against unions. Mm-hmm. We need to stop thinking about these people. I know this is old hat to much of your audience, as judges of law. They are people who make value choices based on the same things you and I make value choices on. Our experiences, our tastes, our life, what our life tells us. You were one of the early people back in 2009 and 2010 who was ahead of the curve on gay rights, who said, you predicted what happened because you said pretty soon in America, everybody's going to know a gay person. You're going to have a family member who's gay. You're going to have a sister-in-law who's gay. And that's going to change everything. And you were right about that. That's exactly what happened, actually. You were exactly right. Mm. But my point here is whatever big con law issue the court is deciding in the days ahead, it's just what they think is best based on an all things considered value choice. And in Gorsuch's brain, Native Americans have, and I agree with him, you agree with him, have been treated horrifically. Now, why he doesn't think that about Black people and why he's adamant against affirmative action is a whole different story. But it's the Western part of this that explains Gorsuch.
It's probably due to what you said, personal experience. He had some personal experience, some nostalgia or something for Native American tribal people. But he had some negative
of his experiences out West, and he deems himself a man of the land or whatever. My point here, Pete, is can we please stop pretending, liberals and conservatives, moderates, whoever, it's not about law. And when you give people almost irreversible power for life, which almost no one has in any democracy except our justices, then it's not going to be about law. It's just not. I mean, why would it be? If you're on the Supreme Court, Pete, and you couldn't get fired and you had 4 people who agreed with you, the country would look like you. Bald.
Sorry. The country would all be bald.
I had to get that in from before. It's just
kind of funny. It's kind of funny.
Kind of funny. I got it kind of funny. That's pretty good.
My friend Kim Nyborg writes in the chat that where it is, being the best, in reference to Gorsuch, being the best of the worst doesn't mean you're good.
No, but that's usually true. If we just look at the subset of Native American cases that Justice Gorsuch has been involved in, he has done as well, I think, as any person could expect.
Quick question about gay marriage. This Kim Davis's case went the Supreme Court didn't want to hear it or something.
Yeah.
Are we done with that for a little bit?
We're not done with it because the Southern Baptists, 10 zillion, gazillion of those numbers of them, want to go back over Obergefell. I have predicted. I have said consistently that I don't think the court is ever going to reverse Obergefell, but again, no one predicted the immunity case. So, right. With that caveat, it would be so hard to untie that knot, Pete. You can't have states where some gay people are married and some aren't. It doesn't make any sense. And that's what would happen because they're not going to retroactively get people unmarried. That's not going to happen. So it's too tricky. It's too messy. Do I think there are 3 votes to do that? Yes. I think Barrett, Alito, and Thomas would do that. But the other 6, I don't think Kavanaugh would do it.
Well, do you want to talk about your recent piece in Dorf, the blog that you read at Dorf on Law about originalism and the conclusions that they've come to, where they've basically said, we've won. We have won. I thought it was really interesting piece.
It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. At the Federalist Society annual lawyers convention, where I've spoken twice in my life, the most recent one, a federal judge said 2 things. Said, A, originalism has won. Let's not argue about it anymore. And B, maybe the Federalist Society shouldn't debate this anymore. We shouldn't be a debating society. We won. Let's take our spoils. For a federal judge to say that, Pete, is pretty bad. But leaving that aside, originalism has not won in any sense other than if you want to get to a position of power in Republican Party circles and conservative circles, you have to label yourself an originalist. In that sense, it's an identity card. It's an ID. I'm an originalist. I get a job. Right. But the Roberts Court, my article coming out soon, every true story ends in death, how the Roberts Court killed originalism. There is no originalism in the Roberts Court. If you read the immunity case, there's no originalism. If you read the Trump disqualification case, there's no originalism. If you read these separation of powers cases where the president has to do this, there's no originalism. When you look at the affirmative action case, there's no originalism. There isn't even originalism in Dobbs. They never asked the question, what is the original meaning of the 14th Amendment as applied to abortion? They never said that. So it's just so frustrating to hear everybody on the right go, see, originalism won. No, it won as a gimmick, as a label. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. This is personal to me. Because in 2018, the book that I wrote, Originalism is Faith, was written under the assumption that most people, not Thomas and not Scalia, but most other people were acting in good faith. That's why I titled my book, Originalism is Faith, as a religion. It's no longer that. You cannot look at the Roberts Court's opinions over the last 6 years and say it's an originalist court. In fact, it's less originalist than the Warren Court in that sense. So the idea this federal judge would proclaim victory and just say, we won. No, you didn't. You won in tricking the entire American population to thinking that you care about what someone said 200 years ago when all you care about is Republican Party's political agenda. The Roberts Court is simply the party of the Roberts Court political agenda. That's what it is. They all
Republican political agenda.
Yeah, it's not more complicated than that. I have written about 10 essays in the last 5 years, updating them all the time with more cases that simply support the Republican Party agenda. That's what it is.
Think we'll go to war with Venezuela? He's not going to do it. He's bluffing.
Pete, so I meant to mention this at the outset. What has always concerned me the most about Donald Trump was a statement he made couple times during the first run for the presidency, which was effectively, why have nuclear weapons if you're not going to use them? I've always been pessimistic about the idea of humankind being able to resist, men mostly, being able to resist the siren call of these powerful weapons. But that anxiety of mine, it goes up 100 times when you talk about Donald Trump. Because I don't think he understands death. Like, I don't think he understands disaster. And so when it comes to, is he going to wage war on this country or that country? The only question is, will that make him feel good?
You're right.
And if it makes, because we no longer have people who will say no. We used to have people in his first term, Remember all those stories about all the people who said no and then got fired or quit. Those stories are all gone. So that happened all the time in the first term. I did so many of those shows with you where this appointee or that appointee quit. Bill Barr or whoever it was, didn't matter. They all eventually said, I can't work with this person.
Right.
No one is saying that anymore. So that keeps me up at night, to be honest, for my children.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do anything. I think they sent the whole Navy down there I think Maduro's gonna leave. I think he's scared. It's all just to scare him. He's gonna
The question is what goes in next, and that's a scary
Well,
thing.
the woman who won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Did you see, by the way, that the ex-president of Brazil was sentenced to prison for like 40 years for staging a coup?
Yeah.
That's how it works in real countries.
Did you see that that guy, Bolsonaro, tried to get his ankle bracelet off and escape? Did you know that who he was on the phone with that the night that he was trying to get out?
I do not.
You don't know who it was?
No.
Our own General Patton. Our own General Eisenhower. Trump called him. He was on the phone with that guy while he was trying to get out. Did you hear the Saudi crown prince came to the U.S. and
that bothered me a lot.
Excused that he cut up an American journalist? So a lot of people didn't like him. A lot of people.
I have so much angst about Saudi Arabia from prior presidents that of the list of things. It's terrible, Pete. I agree.
So speaking of which, that guy Vindman says he heard a phone call between Trump and MBS from the first administration that everybody needs to hear.
Yeah,
that would blow your mind. He's like, release the transcript of that phone call.
I don't think it matters anymore. Actually, I don't. I don't. I can't even.
Epstein files. You think that matters? Epstein files. Think that's going to hurt old Mar-a-Lardo?
I think there were some good signs last week. Marjorie Taylor Greene defecting because he wouldn't support her for Senate.
Marjorie Taylor Brown
is a good thing. A couple other Republicans in Congress are making some noise, but overall, Pete, I don't know. It may be too late. It just may be. I don't know. When I get calls from the media these days, I say to them, only have me on if you're willing to hear all the bad news and none of the
I know that's why we have you, Dr. Doom and Gloom.
And I said my nickname, but in the first administration, there was good news every now and then. In this administration,
plenty of good news every now and then. There's plenty of good news. I see the good news.
Not coming from the Oval Office, not coming from the White House. There isn't.
Well, I don't know what plenty of good news that was coming from the White House in the first administration.
But there were people saying no to the president, and he said fine.
The fact that people were saying no. Well, a lot of courts have said no, and most importantly, people have said no. Most importantly, the midterm elections. Most importantly, this guy's very, 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 very unpopular, the most unpopular ever, and he's very unhappy, Gilmore. This is like I think there's a lot of wins. I see what you're saying in terms of there's not people standing up to him within the administration, but there are in the FBI and in plenty of other parts.
You follow politics as well as anyone I know. Do you think the elections next November are going to be anywhere near fair?
I do think they're, and I think they're going to be, even if they weren't, however they tried to rig them, I think they're going to be overwhelmingly people are going to come out and support Democrats. Also, I think this gerrymandering issue is really interesting too. What's gone on there and how that's
my Thanksgiving pie on gerrymandering? It's got a lot of attention.
No,
it wasn't mine. Somebody else put a picture of a pie up with really weird slices and said this is gerrymandering.
Maybe I did see that, but the point is that may have backfired on the administration. So
why? I'm not. Well, maybe.
I don't know what the latest is on the Texas gerrymandering, but a court ruled that they couldn't do it, and a court hadn't ruled that California couldn't do it. So
the Supreme Court's going to have argument next Monday on a Texas redistricting case, which has huge consequences depending what the court does. Next week, after the argument, we should talk about that because it might have. You don't trust the Roberts Court to do anything right about this, do you? It's going to.
No. I'm not on this. No, for sure. Yeah.
So,
All right. We'll talk then. I thank you for talking now. We adore
happy
you.
Thanksgiving to you and your audience. Hope everybody had a good one.
Happy time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which should deal with the darkness. The time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, the days get shorter and shorter all the way up to the 21st. And then they start to get longer, worth mentioning, but that we should acknowledge how short the days get, and we should have a name for it. Of course, I have a name for after Christmas and before New Year's. That's Taint Week, where nothing happens to taint. But this should also be given, this 3-week period should be given some kind of a name.
I agree. The last time you and I talked at exactly this time, it was light outside, I think. And now it is dark outside.
Hey, you know that it doesn't get dark early in other parts of the like in California. Apparently, they don't have this issue. It's an East Coast. I didn't realize that. I'm so dumb. I did not realize that. That's another reason.
You are not dumb. You are gray.
Are their days shorter though? Don't their days get shorter? Just not significantly. They don't have the
days get shorter until December 21st, right? Isn't that right?
But in California, like I don't know. Is it daylight savings? Someone's gonna have to explain this to me.
Everything is golden in California, Pete. You forgot.
Wow.
That's the way. One last thing. From January to June next year, 2026, the Supreme Court has a chance to dampen just a little bit some of this. And it's going to be, the last 2 years have just been a disaster across the board. I'm hoping there are 3 liberals plus Roberts plus maybe Barrett or Kavanaugh who will pull in the reins a little bit. And when I say that, I feel like Lucy and Charlie Brown. But Pete, I just can't believe like Justice Barrett is going to enable Donald Trump to do the things he wants to do. And if she does, and if they do, then I hope America finally sees that the gig is up. That this is just a political institution doing political things. Because there are so many things that are so blatantly illegal, like killing civilians in international waters without even trying to arrest them, under no authority, in violation of international law, domestic law, all laws. Like, this has to end. I mean, we have no law left. Sorry, last rant.
Appreciate that last point. That last point was brought to you by
Legal?
Candy Carrots. Made by Lynn Segall.
No, maple syrup carrots, not candy.
Go tell her right now. I think that's reprehensible.
Technically, I think it is candy carrots. Listen, you put maple syrup on. I was going to say the yellow pages, and then I realized half of your audience wouldn't know what that is. Maple syrup on my class notes, I will eat them.
Yeah, if you put maple syrup on my typewriter or my quill.
I put maple syrup on eggs.
If you put maple syrup on my.
In fact, I put maple syrup. I'm famous for maple syrup, Captain Crunch, and crab meat on eggs.
All right, fucking gross. Unbelievable. Goodbye. Thank you, everybody, for watching live. Unbelievable.